Hello, Infinite Soul Tribe. When someone leaves you, it can feel like the world you created together collapses. Like every moment, every promise, every shared timeline just crumbles beneath your feet. Not to believe you've been abandoned, to assume you've been left behind. The soul blueprint of the future you were creating has been ripped in half, and the silence they left is louder than words ever could be spoken. And in the stillness that follows, it's tempting to call a heartbreak. But let me say this clearly, this was never just about heartbreak. This was about sacred fire, about the kind of connection that once felt like destiny, but was actually a soul agreement. A frequency-coded contract etched in light before your feet ever touched the same ground. You weren't meant to meet them for romance. You were meant to burn with them. A soul ignition, a mirror meant to crack timelines and clear karmic dust. But when the flame began to rise, only one stayed in it. The other turned away. They didn't just leave you. They left the flame. They walked away from what you both were entrusted with. The frequency, the path, the codes. And in doing so, they didn't just abandon the connection. They abandoned their alignment. They broke the vow not in words, but in vibration. And when that contract fractured, it echoed. You stayed, in silence, in stillness, in Deeprest. And that silence refined you. It didn't just make you stronger. It activated the part of you that hears through the veil. You felt it, the cracks, the energy bleeding from portals that were never properly sealed, the dreams, the weight, the shift in the room when something familiar brushed your atmosphere. This isn't longing. This isn't love. This is contact. The one who turned away is now reaching, not in healing, but in hunger. Because when a soul disconnects from its sacred path, it doesn't disappear. It lingers. It hovers. It tries to plug itself into any source of light that still remembers what wholeness felt like. And you were the last place their spirit felt aligned. Not because of what you gave, but because of what you carried. And now they chase it. Not with words, not with apologies, but through dreams, thought loops, energy spikes, moments where your body reacts before your mind can name it. That's not a memory. That's a spiritual breach. They don't want reconciliation. They want relief. They're not ready to rise. They're trying to survive. And you must see that clearly. You became the flame, not for them, but for yourself. You stood in the fire. You shed your tears of pain. You rebuilt your sanctuary in the ashes of what they couldn't carry. And now, your light exposes the very truth they're still running from. They don't want your love. They want your access. They want to feed from your overflow without bowing to the fire. But what they forget is this. The flame doesn't host what won't surrender. This is not about missing someone. This is about being energetically stalked by a soul who once carried purpose and now carries panic. They're not coming back for healing. They're reaching to bypass it. They're hoping that your light can cover what they refuse to cleanse. But that's not how alignment works. They want to enter your sanctuary carrying everything they picked up in your absence. Grief, confusion, shadow attachments, and expect your peace to absorb it. But your peace isn't a towel for their trauma. It's the reward of your obedience. And your flame doesn't burn to be borrowed. You may still feel the echo, the tenderness, the soul memory. But soul memory without alignment becomes soul distortion. You're not being called back. You're being pulled down. And the cost of entertaining that frequency now is your own timeline. Because let's be real, some returns aren't reconnections. They're tests. Some dreams aren't visions. They're doorways. Some lingering feelings aren't truth. They're residue. So when the weight shows up, when you feel the pulse of them in your sleep, when that ache tries to romanticize the spiritual sabotage, you say this: I'm a flame now. I'm a fire. The contract is complete. The flame no longer calls for what abandoned it. This portal is closed. This soul is sealed. Let it ripple through your field. Let it echo across every layer of memory. You are not a portal for borrowed energy. You are not a second chance for a soul who refuses to walk their path. You are no longer accessible to what rejected the flame. And here's the deepest part they won't admit. They don't miss you. They miss who they were when they stood next to you. They miss the clarity they didn't earn, the vision they didn't keep, the elevation they didn't carry. Because when you walk away from the flame, you lose the codes. But the shadow has a clever way of showing up in disguise. It doesn't knock, it whispers. It doesn't ask permission, it exploits memory. And if you're not fully sealed, It will use your softness as its entry point. So this is your moment to become the gatekeeper of your own sacred space. You're not being cold. You're being consecrated. You're not being prideful. You're being precise. Because clarity is the most loving thing you can choose now. This isn't about bitterness. This is about boundary. You've grown into a space they can no longer occupy. You are not required to stay soft for someone who stayed silent when the flame called. You are not required to answer a knock that comes from confusion. Because confusion is not connection. The truth is, your presence now reminds them of the vow they broke. Your light reveals the shadows they never faced. And every time you rise, you trigger what they avoided. Not because you're trying to, but because your fire exposes the absence of theirs. You're not haunted. You are hunted by a broken vow. And unless you rebuke that energy with clarity, it will find cracks to enter. Not through malice, but through memory. Not through words, but through unsealed thought. It only takes a whisper of curiosity, a breath of nostalgia, for the portal to reopen. And you've come too far to be devoured by a shadow wearing your history's face. You're the one who stayed. You're the one who burned. You are the one who built in silence while no one watched. You are not cold. You are not cruel. You are consecrated. And you don't explain that to anyone who couldn't hold your flame. If they ever return, they'll meet someone they no longer have access to. Because you don't belong to the past. You belong to what's rising now. So if your spirit resonates with this transmission, drop it in the comments. The contract is complete. I walk with flame. That's your energetic boundary. That's your sovereign seal. No more romanticizing residue. No more flickers mistaken for fire. No more softness for what tried to extinguish your soul. You are not waiting for reunion. You are standing in remembrance. And remembrance doesn't reopen the portal. It blesses what was and walks away in light. Because not every energy that calls you in the spirit is yours to answer. Sometimes it's just the echo of someone trying to reach your light without doing the work to rise beside it. And in this season, your clarity is the fire that seals the gate. Thank you for watching. If this ignited your truth, like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to stop carrying what already walked away. These are the codes from the divine to help those who walk with the flame. Until next time, peace, strength, and divine light.